And the analysis of Shields and Brooks, that is syndicated columnist Mark Shields and New York Times columnist David Brooks. Gentlemen, welcome. 3 days before Christmas, Congress has just gone home. David, the president says this tax bill that they passed is a great gift for the American people. He said today corporations are going wild over this. They're showering their employees with bonuses. But the polls show people are still skeptical. What are people to make of this?
Yeah, well, I have not been a big fan of this tax bill for a whole number of reasons, one of which I think was revealed today. When you look at all the intricacies of it, not all the big things, little changes that could have vast effects on American society. For example, we got the health insurance system, the employer-based health insurance system, because of some minor change during World War II. This has all sorts of minor things because we had no hearings, because we had no expert review and no time to actually look at what's in the bill. It has dozens of that kind of minor change that could have massive effects. For example, we could it doesn't make sense to work for a company anymore when you can declare yourself a corporation and pay the corporate rate. And so that could just have massive effects without the economy. So it's actually kind of hard to know what the effects of this tax bill will be, because I think most of them are unintended.
So are people scratching their heads, Mark, or are they worried? What do you see?
People have concluded, at least a strong initial judgment, Judy, that it is a bill that favors corporations and favors the very well-off. That is a conclusion. As Peter Hart, the pollster, says, when a negative judgment is formed, it is very difficult to overcome that. And that is the perception. Most people don't have the option of declaring themselves corporations. That comes to a level of affluence and influence not available to most American families. And I think what David cited is a good example.
Yeah, I would say one thing. I don't think it's going to be a political loser for the Republicans, because 80% of the country of tax units does get a break out of this, of varying sizes. Some people get a pretty significant breaks. If you've got a kid or a couple kids, the child deductible tax credit, it doubles and it becomes refundable, so you actually get a check in the mail. And a lot of people are going to be seeing that, and a lot of people are going to be surprised to see that. So I don't think it'll be the total loser that it looks now. I think now the polling, people don't know what's in the tax bill. They just don't like Trump. He's associated with it. They get the Republicans favor the rich. But this bill is, you spend $1 trillion and a half dollars, you can give a lot of money away.
So so Mark, you're
Disagree? Could I disagree?
Yeah, go ahead.
1986, which was an exemplary tax reform bill. Ronald Reagan passed the Senate 74-23, passed the House 296-132, bipartisan, overwhelmingly, and popular. As President Reagan refused to sign anything that was not deficit neutral. Judy, historic. And that year, 1986, the Republicans lost control of the Senate, lost 9 Senate seats. Democrats increased their majority in the House. In 1981, after President Reagan signed his then historic first tax cut, the same thing. The Republicans suffered. David's point is that they get a couple more bucks. I get 20 bucks more or 30 bucks more in my check. But I'm going to be regaled and inundated with stories of millionaires walking away, of special interests, of Wall Street getting it, and it becomes a very relative. I'm starting to feel duped because all of these wealthy people are getting windfalls.
Yeah, I think the Republicans are going to do very badly in the midterm, but not because of the tax bill.
Okay.
And there are a lot of in '86 it was revenue neutral. In '81 there was a recession. Now times are economically good. So you can vote on a lot of things. In general, when you run up big deficits and give away back money to people, they like it. And people like me say, hey, you should worry about the deficits or you should worry about the distribution effects. That's just never been, I think, my experience of how people responded. They say, hey, I got some money back.
Well, you brought up the midterm elections, and that's what I want to ask you about. But David, your point is that this tax bill is not going to affect Republicans in the midterms that much. Whatever.
I mean, who knows? I mean, the midterms are still a year away. I think the reason people don't like the Republican Party is not because of the tax cut. It's because they don't like Donald Trump. They don't think they're functional for a zillion other reasons. And I think its opinions about Donald Trump are dictating polling about everything else.
But Mark, the Democrats go into this election at a disadvantage when it comes to the numbers. There are more Democrats who are up for re-election, a number of them in states that Donald Trump won. I mean, in the Senate. And they're behind in the House. So how do you see this right now?
I think both history and the polls are very much in the favor of the Democrats, and the wind is at their back. The Republicans just passed this historic tax bill without a single hearing, without a single Democrat. It was totally unpartisan, and it showed where the Republicans, what they care about. I mean, they're leaving town gleefully, self-congratulatorily, with 8.9 million American children in a state of anxiety and suspension about whether they'll have medical coverage. And the children of immigrants, DACA recipients in this country, 900 of whom are in the United States military today, and don't know whether they will be allowed. They've had a green card fast track to citizenship from military service in the past. They don't know under this administration whether they'll be allowed to remain in the country, let alone serving the United States in the military. But they show the priorities, Judy. The priorities was the tax cut. And I just think going into the election, they're just in terrible, terrible shape. And the Democrats history should be against them in the Senate. But right now, Republicans are apprehensive even about retaining Senate control.
Well, yeah, there's multiple targets here. That's not why I think they're in terrible shape. I think they're in terrible shape. We've talked about this before. There's the thing called the generic ballot. Which party do you want to control? Which party and usually if one party is +9, they're like due for a tidal wave of support. And the Democrats right now are +13 or 14. That's just massive. Now we're a year away, and the Democrats have the problem their voters are all clustered more than the Republican voters. But still, it looks like a tidal wave election. If it was today, it'd be a tidal wave election. And it looks like the kind of elections where Democrats would not only carry swing states, like, maybe even Arizona or something like that, but states where you don't even imagine. You remember, like, Scott Brown won in Massachusetts in a way you don't imagine. But
like Alabama?
Yeah, right, well, okay. So weird things happen in years like that, and if it were held today, that's what would happen.
So
could I just agree with David? I agree with David. The liability the Republicans have is that their problems are not curable or susceptible to cure with an initiative or a new policy, because the face of the Republican Party is Donald Trump. And to quote our friend Peter Hart again, who's done focus groups for Emory University, of Trump voters, the words that Trump voters use to describe Donald Trump are childlike, troubled, immature, narcissist, embarrassing.
And these are people who voted for
These are
him.
people who voted for Donald Trump. And the point I make, Judy, is he's very pleased with himself. He's pleased with his temperament and his personality. I think we got that at the celebration, at the signing of the passage of the tax bill at the White House. But I think there's no way this is going to change. And if he's the face of the Republican Party, that's an enormous albatross.
Yeah, people don't judge little legislation in the way that policy economists do, but people are really good at judging character. And maybe not last November, but in general. And so they've taken a look, and especially suburban voters and women have taken a look at this guy for supporting Roy Moore, who, by the way, has behaved gracelessly in the last week. And they've made up their mind. And Trump has kept his core rural base, his white rural base. There's just not a lot of those people.
So you're saying it's not fixable for Republicans?
Well, I always hesitate because I've been surprised in the past, but I don't see how the people who I think are disappointed Trump voters and who are non-Trump voters seem very set in their opinions. They've made a character judgment about this guy and a character judgment about the way he's running the country.
And the intensity and the passion is on the side of the Democrats. And by every measurement, David measured the polls, they are more interested and care more. And, if in real estate, the three elements that matter are location, location, location. In midterm elections, it's turnout, turnout, turnout. And right now, turnout will favor the Democrats.
And if you look, especially if you look at Alabama and at Virginia.
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, exactly.
So we are just a couple of days from Christmas. I have to ask both of you, in this season of giving, is there somebody you can think of out there in the political or the larger world who you would like to give a gift to whom and what? David?
Well, I've had a series of conversations, interviews with people who work in government, some career people and some Trump employees. And what strikes me is, among all of them is they're really sad. They're very sad. And they need happiness. So I was thinking, what makes everybody happy? I think it's dancing penguins and Louis Armstrong. That's why I want to have penguins dancing to Louis Armstrong songs for all those people.
But just to be clear, you're talking about people who work for the federal government as civil servants.
And Trump employees. Everybody is very unhappy right now on both sides and unhappy with each other. There's just a wave of depression.
But there's a serious point under there that they're having a tough time.
Well, the
as we
career
go.
people find it very hard to serve an administration they don't believe in. The Trump people find it very hard to serve an administration without camaraderie. And that's not the way all past administrations have been. It's just it's tough for them. And they came here. A lot of them are good people who wanted to serve the government. They sort of believed in the agenda, and they find the career staff is quite hostile to them. And they find the people they are appointed with are not always friendly because the culture of any administration is set from the top.
Mark, a gift?
Yeah, I just add to David, that is, it's tough to work as a public employee in a government, for a government, or led by an administration that doesn't believe in you and what you do. My own present or offering would be to Doug Jones, who won that Alabama Senate seat. In his victory statement, Judy, he showed us. He thanked people individually, and he was so gracious and so generous. He never demonized anybody. He never skewered his opponent. And he said, this is about bringing people together. And I think it was a wonderful example. And I just want to say thank you, Doug, and bring that same spirit to Washington, because Lord knows we need it.
Uplifting note on which to end this conversation, as I wish both of you a wonderful holiday and Merry Christmas.
Thank you so much.
Mark Shields, David Brooks, thank you.